From everything I've heard from my sources, from the phone calls and texts, you will see a new Alabama quarterback playing in their next game on Saturday. I don't care who QB1 is for Alabama. I don't care who's suiting up in that Crimson Tide uniform. I'm rooting for every single quarterback. Well, this is interesting to say the least. Probably the most interesting thing going on in college football outside of the Colorado Buffaloes and Deion Sanders, a.k.a. Coach Primetime. And you know what I'm talking about. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm going to inform you. That is no other than the Alabama quarterback battle. I don't really know how to ease into this. This Alabama quarterback competition, it is completely open up again and it's wide open. There's a lot going on, and even as a person who follows up with Alabama a lot, this is my team, I have a lot of sources in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, it's still overwhelming for me. It's just a really tricky situation, and I don't think anybody's struggling with this more than Nick Saban himself. Because without hating on Jalen Milroe, we can admit the obvious. At this current point in time, Jalen Milroe's biggest weakness is he cannot process and read defenses. Outside of that, love everything about his game. He's really fast, he's a specimen of an athlete, he's built like Cam Newton, I'd say he's even faster than Cam Newton. I've already sat up here before and raved about Jalen Milroe. I'm not going to do that. The only downside to Milroe, and we saw it against Texas on Saturday, we saw it in the spring game, and we saw it against Texas A&M last year, is he can make costly and game-losing interceptions and turnovers. And you know when that happens, and we'll get to this in just a second, it goes back to him not being able to process and read defenses. I went back and watched some film on the Texas and Alabama game, and to me at least, it looks like Jalen Milroe has already predetermined who he's going to throw the ball to before the play even begins. In other terms, before they're even breaking the huddle when the play's called, Jalen Milroe's like, okay, I'm going to throw the ball here, and that's where he throws it. He's not like Bryce Young. He's not like Tua Tagovailoa. He's not like Mac Jones. He doesn't come off of that first read. And if he does come off of that first read, which is rare if ever, I don't even know if it's happened once, he doesn't even get to his third and fourth read. Because you know what he does after his first option shut down? He escapes the pocket and he runs, which there's nothing wrong with that because when he runs, it normally turns out to be a good play. I'm getting a little too far ahead of myself, I do apologize, but that's where we're at with Jalen Milroe. In my live reaction during the game, I stated I agree with Saban. I wouldn't have took him out of the game. I wouldn't have put in Ty Simpson or Tyler Buchner. Because I think Nick Saban had the same perspective on this as me. Right after that interception, he was going to give him one more drive. And what do you know? In that following drive, he led Alabama to a touchdown. And we'll get to this in just a second. That was a determining factor on whether or not to leave him in the game or bench him for somebody else. And I'll just show it to you right here. Nick Saban was asked on whether or not he was considering benching Jalen Milroe or not, and here's what he had to say, word for word. I did, but when he put the drive together to go down the field and score when we got ahead, I thought that gave him a lot of confidence, but we never ever discussed it. I can't sit here and say that the thought doesn't come to mind for any player who's having a difficult time, but he made some good plays at the end of the game, and that was good to see. Well, actually, now that I've reread this quote, he says when he put the drive together to go down the field and score when we got ahead. So maybe Saban was referring to before halftime, I assume? I don't know exactly which drive Saban's referring to. Maybe he worded that wrong, or maybe that's what he meant to say. The point is he left him in. Nick Saban thought about pulling him out, and he saw a good drive out of Jalen Milroe and was like, okay, we're going to roll with him all throughout the game. And I have no problem with that. I agree. I'd have left him in myself because you also got to understand this. Okay, you take out Jalen Milroe, well, your backup quarterback and your third string, whoever you would have put in there, they're coming ice cold off the bench in a hostile game against Texas. I do want to clarify that to some Alabama fans. Just because you would have pulled Jalen Milroe, it doesn't mean the backup would have played any better. So let's make that clear, but the unknown, it keeps us curious, and I can understand that. With all that being said, that is where we left off on Sunday. Now heading into Monday, here's where things get really interesting. So yesterday, I got a couple of text messages and calls from my sources down in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and these quote-unquote sources are guys at the practices. And to give you some perspective, these are the same sources that told me the information that I relayed to y'all that Jalen Milroe was going to start against MTSU and also start against Texas. To clarify, I broke that news 8 days prior to the MTSU game. ESPN broke that news 1 day prior. Do what you want with that information. All I'm saying is my sources, they're pretty good. They're pretty reliable. I'll put it this way. I trust them enough to take their word and make an entire video about it. They haven't let me down before. They're at the practices. They know what's going on. Anyways, getting back on track here, they called me up. I missed the call. I called them back, and they told me that Tyler Buchner, they said, Matt, Tyler Buchner, he's taking snaps with the first team. And yeah, we talked a little bit more. I asked how he was looking in practice, and they said he's looking better and he's looking more comfortable than he did a couple of months ago. And I'm not going to sit up here and tell you our entire conversation, but at the end of the day, it's practice, so you can take it with a grain of salt. The biggest storyline that I'm just relaying to y'all is that Tyler Buchner was taking snaps with the first team, but they also told me that Jalen Milroe was still taking some snaps with the first team as well. It was more so of Nick Saban was incorporating Tyler Buchner in a little bit more. And it's looking like at this point in time, Tyler Buchner's the next guy up. Now, if you're a Bama fan, I know exactly what you're sitting there thinking, and trust me, I've been thinking this as well. Wasn't that crap happen to Ty Simpson? We was told that Ty Simpson was supposed to be the next chosen one. This guy was a 5-star recruit, and it just seems like he can't put it together. And I wish I had an update to tell y'all, but everything I've heard from that Tuscaloosa area, he just hasn't looked good, and that's all there is to it. I don't know if he's nervous, I don't know what's going on, but he hasn't lived up to the expectations and hype, which is unfortunate, but it's reality. So at least for now, the newest new updates is that next guy up outside of Milroe is Buchner. Me personally, do I like this? Yes, of course I like this, but before we go any farther, let me also show you what Saban had to say about the practice. Because as this news was getting leaked out, Saban talked about it in an interview. And here's what he had to say. He said a lot to it, but we'll just sum it up. Quote unquote, "We feel really good about how he's continued to improve and develop." This is referring to Tyler Buchner. I'm going to show you this comment from Jordan. He wrote this on our Instagram post. "Think he's got the better," referring to Tyler Buchner, "think he's got the better IQ to run the system based off of the history at Reese. I'd rather give him a chance and see what happens than not try and wonder what could have been." I'm going to remind some of y'all, Tyler Buchner, Alabama's backup quarterback, he was also the quarterback that played for Tommy Reese at Notre Dame. And what excites me about Tyler Buchner, and I think what could separate him from Jalen Milroe, is yes, I think he does have the, I guess you'd say, better football IQ than Jalen Milroe. I think Tyler Buchner does read the defense and can process the defense faster than Jalen Milroe and better than Milroe. Now, is that to say that Jalen Milroe is a terrible quarterback? No, I'm not saying that whatsoever. You have to be mature enough to sit up here and say, hey, let's just give the new guy a shot without trashing Milroe. And I love Milroe, and y'all saw my live reaction to the game. Yeah, I've given him a hard time, but that's rightfully deserved and rightfully earned. I don't care if it's Jalen Milroe or if that was my brother out there playing. I'd sit up here and tell him the same thing. Hey, man, you didn't look good. Hey, man, you had not one but 2 costly interceptions. That's the reality. But in 2023, when you tell people the harsh truth, they're like, oh my gosh, you're so mean. No, that's reality. If Jalen Milroe goes out there against Texas and plays bad, what do you want me to come up here and say? Do you expect me to come up here and say, oh, yeah, Jalen Milroe, he didn't have his best stuff, but he's still got a lot of potential? No, I'm not about that. That's not what you're going to get on this channel. I'm going to tell you the straight up cold hard facts. I like Jalen Milroe as a person. It's nothing against him personally, but he didn't play good. And I'm an Alabama fan. It's okay for me to admit Jalen Milroe didn't play good. So let's get that straight, man. I've seen so many Bama fans say, oh, too many other Bama fans are hating on Milroe. They're saying he played bad. Well, yeah, he did play bad. And don't get it twisted. The first thing I criticized in my live reaction was the offensive line. They were pitiful. Offensive line was atrocious against Texas. But at the end of the day, that's not an excuse for Milroe throwing 2 INTs that cost Alabama at bare minimum 10 points. But getting back on track here with the Alabama quarterback situation, from everything I've heard from my sources, from the phone calls and texts, you will see a new Alabama quarterback playing in their next game on Saturday. Now here's my big question, and my sources, they really couldn't tell me too much about it because they didn't know. Who's going to start the game? Are you going to see a new starter in Tyler Buchner, or is it still going to be Milroe? Don't know. But if I had to give you my 2 cents, I would say at this point in time on Tuesday when this video is going up, I'd say Milroe is still going to start. However, I can guarantee you this, you're going to see Buchner in there quicker than the 3rd or 4th quarter. I wouldn't be shocked if you see Buchner get in there on the 3rd, 4th, maybe 5th drive. Don't expect him to start, but at the same time, let me also make this clear, I wouldn't be shocked if Buchner does start the game against South Florida. Because why not? And let's be honest, I know Saban won't admit this, but this is a guaranteed win. Even if you start Buchner and he throws 2 pick sixes, Alabama come back and win this ball game with Jalen Milroe. So this is a good week for Alabama. I know we're coming off of a loss, but it's still a good week to practice and learn more about our team and see who can be our new quarterback heading into that Ole Miss game. Because I tell you what, in that Ole Miss game, that is not going to be an easy win. If we just show up expecting to win because we're big bad Alabama, they'll come into Bryant-Denny Stadium and beat us just like Texas. And before we end off this video, I want to say this, and if you don't listen to a single other thing I say, please listen to this part. I don't care who QB1 is for Alabama. I don't care who's suiting up in that Crimson Tide uniform. I'm rooting for every single quarterback. I don't care if it's Milroe, Buchner, or Simpson, or Lonergan, or the 5th string or 6th string. I'm rooting for all these guys. I hope they go out there against South Florida and go 50 for 51 with 6,000 passing yards and 42 touchdowns. But at the end of the day, obviously, that's not going to happen. And somebody out of these three guys, Buckner, Simpson, and Milroe, they got to step up and take the bull by the horns. And let me ask you a question. Do you really think I enjoyed getting up here after that Texas-Alabama game and talking bad about Jalen Milroe? Because I didn't. I want to come up here and hype up Milroe. That's what I want to do. And it's the same thing for Buckner and Simpson. If they go out here against South Florida and throw for 4 interceptions, I'm going to light them up too. You better believe that too. But also I want to say this and state this and make it astronomically clear. Take what you see on Saturday with a grain of salt as well. Because it is South Florida. Even Jalen Milroe looked really good against MTSU. And then we saw what happened in the following week against Texas. So just because if Milroe goes out here against South Florida or Buckner goes out here against South Florida and balls out, that doesn't mean we know who our QB1 is. Sorry. I was going to say quarterback, but we'll just say QB1. It's South Florida. It's not a serious, real deal opponent in a big time team. I think when we really will be able to find out who our QB1 is for the rest of the season is going to be during the Ole Miss game or throughout the Ole Miss game. Or that's the same thing, but you get what I'm trying to say. Either during the Ole Miss game or by the end, though. That's what I meant to say. I will say this, though, yet again, if you're tuning into this Alabama game on Saturday, expect to see a new quarterback. And I don't mean he's going to get in there in the fourth quarter during garbage time. No, you're going to see him in meaningful action. I'm very curious. Let me know in the comment section. What do you think should happen and what would personally please you? What would you do if you was Nick Saban? I'll tell you what I would do. I personally would start Tyler Buckner to see how he handles a start, and I'd also play Jalen Milroe coming off of the bench. That's how I would do it. As far as it goes for Ty Simpson, it just seems like he's a lost cause. And I hate to say that, but it seems where we're at in this situation. And I would start Buckner and I'd bench Milroe also to see how Milroe responds to some adversity coming off of the bench. That's what I would do. Because at bare minimum, you got to play both guys, don't you? Just to see what you got sitting on the bench. It really wouldn't make any sense for you to bring in Buckner from Notre Dame, not even to give him a legit chance. You see what I'm saying? You brought him in, why not? Play him against South Florida. If he sucks, and you just move on. But I got a feeling that Buckner, he's not going to suck. We'll see what happens. We'll see. Let me know your thoughts down below. But